So good morning, thank you. Welcome to the second hearing of the inquiry into allegations of impropriety against agents of the City of Canterbury Bankstown Council. Before I commence, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are meeting today. I pay my respects to elders past and present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of New South Wales. I also acknowledge and pay my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people joining us today. Today we'll be hearing from Mayor Carl Asfor, the Mayor of the City of Canterbury Bankstown Council. The Mayor is accompanied by his legal advisors. Before we commence, I would like to make some brief comments about the procedures for today's hearing. Today's hearing is being broadcast live via the Parliament's website. The proceedings are also being recorded and a transcript will be placed on the committee's website once it becomes available. In accordance with the broadcasting guidelines, media representatives are reminded that they must take responsibility for what they publish about the committee's proceedings. While parliamentary privilege applies to witnesses giving evidence today, it does not apply to what witnesses say outside of the evidence at the hearing. I therefore urge witnesses to be careful about comments you make to the media or to others after you complete your evidence. Committee hearings are not intended to provide a forum for people to make adverse reflections about others under the protection of parliamentary privilege. In that regard, it is important that witnesses focus on the issues raised by the inquiry's terms of reference and avoid naming individuals unnecessarily. All witnesses have a right to procedural fairness according to the Procedural Fairness Resolution adopted by the House in 2018. I note, in accordance with that resolution and with the prior agreement of this committee, the witnesses appearing today are accompanied by and will have reasonable opportunity to consult their legal advisors during the hearing. If witnesses are unable to answer a question today and want more time to respond, they can take a question on notice. Written answers to questions taken on notice are requested to be provided within 48 hours of the provision of the transcript. I'll just note, Mr. Asfor, I note that you have not provided the answers to the questions taken on notice at the previous hearing, and I advise you that questions taken on notice at a hearing are an extension of the hearing itself. Non-compliance is a serious matter and is treated in the same way as a refusal to answer a lawful question at a committee hearing. I just note that punishment under Section 11 of the Parliamentary Evidence Act is imprisonment for any period not exceeding 1 calendar month. Noting the sanctions under the Parliamentary Evidence Act, I reiterate the committee's request that you provide the answers as soon as possible. In terms of the audibility of the hearing today, I remind both committee members and the witness to speak into the microphone. And finally, could everyone please turn their mobile phones to silent for the duration of the hearing. I also just wanted to make another observation as we prepare today to remind each and every one of us the importance of maintaining respect towards our witness. Clause 19 of the Procedural Fairness Resolution reminds committee members that witnesses will be treated with courtesy at all times. Mayor Asfor has voluntarily agreed to come before us today to provide valuable evidence, and he, like all other witnesses, deserves our full attention and fair treatment. I now welcome the witness for today's proceeding, Mayor Carl Asfor. Mr. Asfor, as you have appeared as a witness previously in this inquiry, you are able to appear today under your former oath. However, could you please state your full name and position title for the transcript?
Carl Asfor, Councillor Carl Asfor, the Mayor of Canterbury Bankstown.
Okay. And would you like to start by making a short statement?
I would, Madam Chair.
And if you could keep it no more than a couple of minutes. Then.
I'll do my best, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the committee, when I appeared before you in December a few months ago, I asked to be given a fair go and that you afford me procedural fairness. It appears my request fell on deaf ears. Information provided to this committee was selectively leaked to the media and published prior to it being posted on the inquiry website and before I had the opportunity to answer any of your questions. A deliberate and calculated leak aimed at damaging my reputation and, as previously mentioned, to derail my political ambitions. The subsequent media headlines and public commentary afforded me no procedural fairness and left me with little choice but to withdraw as a candidate for the Legislative Council, a decision I made of my own choosing and one made in the best interests of the party. Madam Chair, with no reflection on you, this inquiry's integrity and impartiality has been shot to pieces, and One Nation representative Mark Latham, I know he's not here today, but he should disqualify himself from this committee immediately. He lost all legitimacy to be part of this committee when he called a joint news conference with the dump Mihalik, his star recruit, to prejudge and slag me off about matters which had not yet come before this committee, and more importantly, before I had the chance to defend myself. He accused me of claiming everything on the ratepayer except my underpants. My challenge to Mr Latham before this public inquiry is that he gives some undertaking to do some due diligence on the newest member of his racist party when she was the mayor of the former Bankstown Council. I don't think he will, because he won't like what he'll dig up, but I'm hoping to assist. She spent tens of thousands of dollars of ratepayers' money on things like bottles of Johnny Walker Scotch, Bailey's Irish Cream, slabs of beer, Russian vodka, and there weren't too many local outlets that didn't know her
Mr.
order.
Asfor, I draw your attention to my opening remarks in which I said adverse comments about individuals. I think you are, well, I don't think, I believe you are making adverse comments about individuals. I know it is parliamentary privilege, but I warn you to be careful.
Madam Chair, with all due respect...
The Chair's still speaking.
Have you finished?
I have finished now.
With all due respect, Ms Mihalik was a former mayor and councillor of the former Bankstown Council, and this inquiry, along with other things, has specifically requested claims and expenses of all councillors. So it falls within the terms of reference, and I'm giving evidence to this inquiry under oath, and it falls within the terms of reference about her claims and expenses when she was the mayor of the city. So I'm not doing anything other than providing evidence to this inquiry based on the terms of reference. I'd like to continue, please.
I don't believe that that is in with the terms of reference. So I ask that you keep your comments about individuals, especially adverse comments, out of your opening statement.
Oh. Again, there were many local outlets that knew her order. And then there were the flowers. She dispatched to anyone that wanted to curry favour with MPs like Joe Tripodi, sending him flowers on at least 2 occasions at the ratepayer's expense.
Mr Asfor, I don't think that you heeded to my previous request.
Madam Chair, it falls within the terms of reference. I am giving my opening statement, which I'm entitled to do, and you have asked for all councillors since 2004's claims and expenses, and I am giving evidence to this inquiry, something that this committee and this inquiry should be looking at. Her expenses when she was the mayor of the city. I think it's a very black and white response here. I mean, I'm entitled to give an opening statement and I'd like to deliver it, please.
All right, just keep your comments.
Her spending wasn't limited to grog. She was good on the tooth, claiming for takeaway Chinese meals from her family, for her family, from local outlets, and the occasional late night fine dining experience. Not to forget the chicken nuggets, chips and flavoured milk for her kids when they finished school. But these weren't the biggest expenses. There was also the expenses on cab fares in the hundreds of dollars, where she would get her cab driver to wait for hours. And you need to ask, why so many cabs when she had a mayoral car, claimed for petrol, and even had several council staff at her beck and call driving her around? Some might say it was because the mayoral car was off the road. I can confirm it was for a few weeks after she smashed into a Hummer, causing just on $100,000 in repairs for the Hummer and $20,000 damage to the mayoral car. And who do you think foot that bill? I can tell the committee she loves celebrating Christmas. She stashed 2 6-foot inflatable Christmas trees into her boot that were purchased for the mayor's community Christmas party. And it wasn't the only occasion. Reminiscent of a scene from the Griswolds movie, she ordered staff to deliver another tree, which is part of council decorations at our library, to her home, only to have it lopped from the top as it didn't clear her ceiling.
Mr Asphalt, can I stop you there?
I don't have long to go, Madam Chair.
I think you've said enough. I'd like to move to questions now.
I'd like to finish my opening statement, which...
You haven't heeded any of the previous warnings, so I think...
Madam Chair, I thought it was appropriate that the committee and the inquiry hear how ratepayers' money has been spent and falls within the terms of reference, impropriety at Bankstown Council and the current council and the former Bankstown Council. She was a former councillor and a former mayor, and it's part of this inquiry's job and committee to understand and know that this has happened. And, you know, there's procedural fairness as well in me having to complete my opening statement. I mean, I just don't understand why I'm being called to not finish it when it falls clearly and directly within the terms of reference.
Yeah. On this instance, I will ask you to stop and I'll turn to questions.
Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr Asphalt, I must say I've been in Parliament 5 years now and I've never heard an opening statement from a chair of a committee that had to draw the witness to the attention of parliamentary privilege and the consequences for flouting the 21 days notice for questions on notice. I thought you would actually address in your opening statement the fact that you've not come back with answers to questions on notice taken 46 days ago.
I wasn't allowed to finish my opening statement.
All right, well, I'll give you the opportunity now. It's been 46 days since that appearance. You took a number of, to be frank, quite basic questions away on notice. 46 days since then, we've not seen a single response. Do you want to address that?
Firstly, the Hansard and the questions on notice weren't given or sent to me until late 15th or the 16th of January. So that's nearly a month after I first appeared. Second thing is, a lot of the questions I took on notice were in relation to operational matters, things that I don't have access to, and we are still, me and myself and my legal team are still trying to get some of those answers from the council and the council's legal team, and it has taken some time, and we still don't have all of them, I understand, but I do understand we're close. There was correspondence sent on Friday by this committee for the answers that I did have prepared, and unfortunately I understand my solicitor was not in the office and could not provide it, but has been working on finalising it this morning, and I understand we'll have it by morning tea. That's the section of the answers that I'm able to answer, and still waiting on the stuff from the council. So that's the reason. It's not that I'm trying to evade answering them. I've answered and asked and requested the council to provide the data and the information that is needed to help the committee with their work.
Okay, so you're saying the council need to collate the documents, get them to your legal team?
There's been a lot of documents requested by this committee, and it's costing the ratepayers a lot of money to find and sort and send these documents, and I'm hoping we'll have them soon enough, but I can't control what I can't control.
Okay, so you took a handful of quite basic questions on notice from me in regards to EAL consulting.
Yeah.
Are you saying that council need to collate the documents from EAL and give them to you?
Again, I was given till 3 o'clock last Friday, to send them to the committee, and I understand they're ready. I've personally answered them weeks ago, but we've been waiting for the council documents to give a wholesome response to all the questions on notice. We've been liaising with the committee, and I understand that those documents, or the answers that I did prepare for that aren't council related that you asked me about, I understand that they are ready and they have been ready. I'm just waiting for my legal team to send them over,
Okay.
which I assume is happening this morning.
So let's separate out the council questions from the EAL questions.
Sure.
And be clear that you're not waiting for council or your legal team.
No, I'm not.
Okay, so what does EAL consult on?
I've answered them in the response to the questions on notice. I don't have it with me, but EAL consults.
And we don't have them either.
We don't have
Yeah,
them.
no, I understand, and you will have them. You'll have them at morning tea, I understand. Is that right? Yeah, you'll have them at morning tea, if that's okay.
Well, this is quite extraordinary, 46 days after a
46
simple
days.
question was
It's not 46
asked.
days, considering there was nearly a month between the appearance and and me receiving
All
the
right,
answer.
Well,
See-
seeing you've refreshed your memory on what EAL consulting does, what does it do?
EAL was set up when I started a mortgage brokering business see, this is why I wanted the answers. In, say, 2004, 5, 6 maybe, 2006, EAL has also been assisting an accounting business in helping them, and mums and dads giving them advice on accounting, not accounting, but development, management and process. So that's the sort of stuff I do.
Development, as in business development?
Yes,
or
business development.
Property development?
Not necessarily property development.
Okay, okay. Are you able to name any of the clients that consulted?
For privacy reasons, I don't think it's important, but I think mums and dad investors, mums and dads, businesses that...
Locals in Canterbury, Bankstown area or more widespread?
I actually really do not work with any locals in the Canterbury Bankstown area. I do my best to ensure that so there's no perceived conflict of interest. So no. From my records, I didn't find anyone in the Canterbury Bankstown area, but that's from my records.
So what's your expertise to provide this business development advice?
I help through through an accounting business that I am close to, my wife's accounting business. I help develop her business and help clients in that regard with her administration, management of that business, other mortgage brokers that I have an affiliation with. I mean, that's the type of business I do. Again, I don't do much of it. I haven't done much of it for a long time. But yeah, I offer advice and pathways.
Pathways.
Yeah, pathways to getting a loan, to restructuring through accounting, those sorts of things.
Are you a licensed mortgage broker?
I was. As I said, I haven't done work with EAL, very sparingly. But that's when it was set up, and that's the type of work I have done.
So just jumping back to the theme of these opening questions, which is questions we asked 46 days ago, are you able to recap where you travelled on your overseas trips, Council, now going through the records?
I think we covered most of them last time, but again, they're in the answer. I don't have them before me. I will have them at morning tea.
Right. And so just while we're still on this, so I'm trying to still unpick what EAL actually does and what you do with EAL.
Sure.
So your wife is an accountant, is that correct?
Correct.
So she's a CPA? You're not a
She's a
CPA? A CA, a certified accountant. Are you a CA or a CPA? Or? No. You're not a mortgage broker anymore? Or, are you a financial advisor? Are you registered as a financial advisor?
No, I'm not.
So does your wife work through EAL Consulting as well, or is that just you? Or
No, it's just me.
it's just you?
I work for my wife sometimes, yes.
Okay, so your wife is a client of yours, potentially through EAL?
Potentially, yeah. Yes.
Okay. And in terms of that advice, so you're providing advice on restructuring, on loans, facilities, what is it you're providing advice on to these?
Whatever the client needs of me, I try and help provide advice in that space, yes. But not financial planning. And,
but you were saying these are mums and dads before. These are mums and dads you're providing advice to.
Because you asked me, and when I was a licensed mortgage broker.
Okay, I don't think that was the question about licensed mortgage broker, but about EAL consulting and that's who your clients are there.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to answer. So at the time when I set it up, I was doing mortgage brokering because I was a licensed mortgage broker, and I was doing mortgages for mums and dads.
Okay, and then EAL consulting transformed after that into being what?
An advisory service business.
And how do you find these clients that you've got through EAL consulting?
Word of mouth usually. I don't go out searching. It's just when I'm approached to help people that I have met or understood through my wife's business or through other affiliates, they will come to me and ask me for advice on certain things, be it, whatever it is they're asking me about. So it's just, again, not something that I spend a lot of time doing.
Okay. We'll turn, when we look forward to seeing the questions on notice, to maybe get more information as to what EAL Consulting actually does. So now turning to Sync Solutions, and Sync Solutions, of course, provided the report to Canterbury Bankstown Council. Yes. Now, the website of Sync Solutions has 3 staff that are listed. The first is currently a Pilates teacher who no longer works for Sync Solutions, according to her LinkedIn. The second has worked in governance for the Canterbury Bankstown Council and was previously with Canterbury Bankstown Council for 7 years. Were these relevant conflicts of interest disclosed to Mr. Arthur Moses?
I was at arm's length from the investigation and have had I've answered questions for Sync Solutions, but I've had no role whatsoever in the work that Sync Solutions has done and how they were engaged.
And are you aware of Sync Solutions performing any other work for Canterbury Bankstown Council?
I'm aware they have in the past, yes.
So do you believe that's a conflict of interest at all, or?
In what sense?
Well, in the sense that they're already on the council teat, effectively, and then they're asked to provide a report on Canterbury Bankstown Council and its governance, and that they come back and say everything's hunky-dory, and that they're already...
I think the Sync Solutions investigation, firstly, I think there are a number of businesses like Sync Solutions that investigate in local government land, and they were asked to do this by the CEO, and I think it'd be hard to find I think it's important to note that this was reviewed by Arthur Moses, so it wasn't just Sync Solutions; it was Arthur Moses reviewing it. So I hope you're not suggesting, that there's any conflict with Arthur Moses reviewing it as well.
With all these things, it all depends on the information that they're given. So Sync Solutions provide, I understand, do an ordinary governance report for Canterbury Bankstown Council every year. For them to go through effectively and look at the audit and governance,
there were 6,000 to 7,000 pages of documents that Sync Solutions went through. There were invitations to invite people to give information or evidence that and it was all reviewed by Arthur Moses. So I think it's a pretty far stretch to conclude that because someone worked at Sync Solutions that there was a conflict of interest in them undergoing the investigation.
Don't you think it would have been better for somebody at arm's length who hadn't actually done any audit and governance investigations on Canterbury Bankstown Council to have done that work rather than Sync Solutions?
I think you'd want someone with local government experience.
Well, there's plenty of people with local government experience outside of Sync Solutions.
Sure, and if it was another company, you'd be probably asking me the same questions because they would have done some work for the council in the past.
Considering Canterbury Bankstown Council's audit and governance audit is done every year by Sync Solutions, or has been for some time, don't you think that if Sync Solutions had to come back and said...
Let's go back to that. What are you talking... What have they done for council every year? An audit...
Audit and governance report, aren't they? Isn't that what they're doing for Canterbury Bankstown Council each year?
The audit is done by the audit office.
Yes, but in terms of the audit and governance arrangements at Canterbury Bankstown Council, isn't that
Yeah.
what Sing Solutions are engaged to do with Canterbury Bankstown Council?
I don't know the answer to that.
But if they had come back and said that Canterbury Bankstown Council had any problems, don't you think that would have reflected on them in their previous work, that they hadn't caught it before?
I think Sing Solutions have undergone an independent arm's-length investigation and found that I have not, and I'm innocent of all the things that Ms Mihalik said about me under parliamentary privilege because I have had no role in the Bankstown City Master Plan. I mean, and it was reviewed again by Arthur Moses. So to say that, you know, to try and throw some shade of grey over Sing Solutions' investigation is also throwing grey over Arthur Moses, and I don't think that's appropriate.
Are you familiar with Sing Solutions or any of the proprietors of Sing Solutions?
I am, yes. The person that I think is the proprietor, I mean, I don't know the business structure, but Miss Kath Roach, and yeah, I am aware of who she is.
And that's through previous work with Canterbury Bankstown Council, or?
Yes.
Okay. No
And other councils.
No other
councils.
relations with them at all, on a personal level?
On a personal level?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
And with respect to those allegations you alluded to, made by the member for Bankstown, that report only looked into a select number of those allegations, not all of them. Was there a reason why not all of those allegations were investigated?
I think if you were to read the Hansard, it's pretty hard to try and find out what the actual allegation is. And that's why in the report it talks about Sing Solutions having to try and formulate the allegations because there was no allegation. No, it's hard to work it out. So the report talks about them trying to come up with, inferring some allegations from the speech and then investigating them. And that's what happened. Because the allegations, I mean, you know, there are many people that have read that Hansard and still can't work out what the actual allegation is.
Thanks, Mr. Aspel.
Could I just, on Sing Solutions there, knowing that this inquiry has been almost 2 months, Sing Solutions appear to have been able to obtain documents from council. Why is it taking so long for council to provide documents to this inquiry?
I can't answer that, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I mean,
so that's something I should put to...
the reality is that Sing Solutions were investigating purported allegations by the member for Bankstown, Tanya Mahalik, who, as we all know, is a former councillor and mayor. If the amount of material that this committee has asked of the council is enormous, it is literally enormous, going back to 2004. A lot of those records, I understand, are in storage and are hard to find,
Okay.
if they even exist. So, I can't answer that.
I'll ask the staff.
Sure.
Sorry.
Just turning now to the article in The Australian
Sure.
last week.
Yeah.
I assume you've read that article. I think you alluded to it in your opening statement. The illegal donations from David Pham via Mr Bing Su, the trading name now called Snow Blossom. What's your response to the article and those allegations?
I have not accepted a donation from Mr David Pham. I accepted a donation from Bing Su Proprietary Limited, which is a dessert store in Bankstown.
Owned by David Pham.
Not that I'm aware of.
What's your relationship with David Pham?
I know David Pham. I don't have a relationship with David Pham. I haven't seen David Pham for, 3-4 years. I don't have a relationship with David.
You wouldn't classify him as a friend?
No.
Has he helped on your campaigns?
No.
So you weren't aware at the time that David Pham had part ownership of Mr Bing Su?
And I'm still not aware that he does. I haven't seen anything to tell me that he did or had.
And does he or his associated entities have any other properties in Canterbury Bankstown?
I do not know. I'm not expected to know who owns every property in the city.
When did you last visit Mr. Bing Su?
Bingsu changed its name, or it doesn't operate anymore.
Snow Blossom?
Yeah. I eat at restaurants within that complex occasionally. So I can't remember when the last time I went there was.
And do you pay for your own treats or desserts when you visit?
Absolutely.
Have you been given products for free?
No.
Do you have proof that you ever purchased anything from Mr. Bing Su?
Do I have proof? No, I do not.
And do you...
Point of order, Chair. I might just ask, if the questioner wants to put any proof of these questions, it'd be helpful as well to the witness in order to answer them.
I'll move on. Do you have a relationship with any of the staff who work at Mr. Bing Su?
No.
And just on the actual donation itself, how did you solicit that donation?
I was speaking to the owner of Bingsu, and he wanted to support my campaign, and he did.
And that wasn't David Pham?
No.
So who was the person that gave you the donation?
The proprietor of Bingsu, his name is Mr. Kat Nguyen.
Kat Nguyen. And will you repay these donations or the donation?
If they are found to be an illegal donation, absolutely I will. But again, I don't believe that it was.
Thank you. Madam Chair, on a similar theme, you also received 2 donations which were essentially around the donation cap from Barbecue City in Bankstown.
Mm-hmm.
Does that ring a bell?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who owns these stores?
I understand. I think I do. Yeah.
Do you want to tell us?
A person by the name of Justin. I can't remember his last name at the moment.
Okay. Are you aware of these businesses being linked to David Pham?
Other than the fact that they're in a building that his family owns.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And when do you visit Barbecue City Bankstown often?
I have in the past, yes.
Yep. Do you always pay for your food there, or do they look after you sometimes?
I pay.
Yep. So, do you know anyone that works there?
No.
No. Okay.
Not that I can recall, no.
So in
Other
that case,
than no.
Yeah, okay.
Other than Justin.
sure. So
Yeah.
you solicited the donation through Justin. Yep.
Yes.
All right. If the Bingsu donation is found to be an illegal donation, which you just said you pay back,
Yeah.
if this is similar, would you also
Yeah.
pay
Absolutely.
back? You don't
I mean,
see-
I have no intention of taking illegal donations.
Yeah, just being. Yeah. Okay. You're number 2 on your Labor ticket for council, and now Deputy Mayor
Yes.
Bilal El Hayek.
Well, he's not the deputy mayor, but
Okay, well,
Councillor El Hayek. Yeah.
Was he aware of these donations at all?
Was he aware?
Was he aware? Did he play a role in soliciting these donations?
No.
Have you ever spoken to Bilal about any of David Pham's properties?
Not that I recall.
Have you had conversations with him about the location of the hospital?
Who? With whom?
Bilal.
I've had conversations about location of the hospital with thousands of people.
Sure. And he's one of them. Okay, take it. Did he have any queries about where almost $20,000 in donations for your ticket had come from? Was he involved in that process?
No, he was not.
Okay. Does he have a relationship with David Pham that you're aware of?
I don't think. I can't answer that. I don't
You don't
think
know?
he's
Never
ever
seen
met,
them
I don't
together?
think he's ever met David Pham. To
Okay.
be honest, but I can't answer that.
Okay.
So,
sure.
so, Mr. Asphalt, political donations are hard to come by. They're not necessarily...
You guys don't declare any of yours. Let's just be clear
but
here.
it's not very often that you see dessert stores and barbecue restaurants that are coming to the donations cap to make donations. Why were they so enamoured with your campaign to support you so strongly?
They believe, and rightly so, that I'm a good mayor, and that they wanted to ensure that I was re-elected.
So both Barbecue City, that I asked questions about, and my colleague, the Honourable Chris Rath, asked about Mr Bing Su. Now, both these establishments are in the Little Saigon Plaza.
Yes.
That's a shopping centre that's owned by the fans.
Yes.
How was Little Saigon Plaza then chosen as the location for the mayoral Christmas party?
Well, it's a mayoral Christmas party. I get to choose whichever location that is that has the right facilities to host such a Christmas party.
Okay.
And that's why it's been hosted there in the past, but it's also been hosted just last year at the League's Canterbury Bankstown Leagues Club.
Okay.
And so it's at your discretion where to have the mayoral Christmas party?
As long as it's reasonable and within, within the right budget and the right capacity to hold the right number of people, I get to choose where I have my Christmas party.
So inquiries were made about other venues?
Yes.
Same, you would say, for the mayoral iftar dinner that was
Same.
also held at Little
Yeah, I mean,
Saigon
you
Plaza.
got, which I think you were.
I was in
You
attendance.
were there.
I spoke.
You
on
were there,
behalf
Mr.
of,
Rath. I allowed you to speak.
I was.
Yes.
You did.
I did, because I'm a nice guy. But again, as you would appreciate, Mr. Rath, the venue has to cater for such a large number of people, and there aren't many venues that cater for that large number of people, that deliver a service and a quality that I think is expected.
So you obviously look at the criteria in terms of where to hold such events like
Sure.
that in terms of, cost benefit to the taxpayer.
Absolutely, I do, and I try and also make sure that it's, in both sides of the city, if I may. So try and share in the Canterbury side and the Bankstown side, whether it's citizenship ceremonies, whether it's mayoral events, whether it's thank yous to our local SES volunteers. It's all done with that in mind.
But when you're on the Bankstown side, it seems like you're always sharing to the Little Saigon.
No, again, it's the size and the quality of service. But no, I've had events at the Bankstown Sports Club. I've had events at the RSL. I've had events all different. Again, it's a matter of the size, the location, the cost, all those things
But
are looked at.
Did you ever advocate for the events to be at Little Saigon Plaza?
No, I didn't advocate. No.
So your sister, Giselle Asfor,
Yes.
is on documents managing leases for properties in Little Saigon Plaza.
That's news to me.
Did you ever advocate for her on her behalf?
I did not even know that. So unless you can show me that, I'm news.
So you were aware of your sister's connection with Little Saigon?
In that she manages leases there.
Yeah.
You're saying that she does. I don't know whether she does or not. But if she does, then yeah, no, I'm not aware. Absolutely not aware. And look, there are businesses in that centre that operate, and provide for people's livelihoods. That and there are many of them. It's a shopping
As there
centre.
are all across the
As they are,
Bankstown.
absolutely. I mean, at Bankstown Plaza, at the Campsie Centre, there are businesses within the shopping centre. I don't know who leases what and from whom, and I'm not expected to know. And it's not, but quite frankly, it's not in my. I don't care. It's not my business. That's not my job. My job is to lead the Canterbury Bankstown Council.
And just back to that job and the leadership of Canterbury Bankstown Council as well. So in 2019, you were a staunch advocate that the new Canterbury Bankstown Hospital should be located anywhere but the Canterbury Bankstown CBD. Is that correct?
No, that isn't correct. It wasn't the only location. I
think
was
that
purporting.
You were
sorry,
reported as saying
Mr. Farlow.
that it shouldn't be in there because of the traffic considerations.
No, that's taken out of context, that quote. I was saying that the hospital needed to be in the CBD to make the CBD a jobs employment generator, so we can have research institutes and the like come in to the CBD and provide good, high-quality, white-collar jobs. It would also work well with the university that was being built at the time. We had a good site there in a TAFE that is, that is 50, 60, 70 years old. It made sense, and it still makes sense to me, that the hospital should go there. And that's my belief, and I'll
So on the
resolve
11th
that.
of March in 2019, and
Yes.
an article in the Express, New South Wales Government vows to splash $1.3 billion on Bankstown Lidcombe Hospital.
Yep.
You were quoted as saying that you can't build a new hospital in the Bankstown CBD if no one can get to it. So you've had certainly a change of opinion when it comes to the location of the hospital.
That quote is taken way out of context, and I'd need to go back and just check the context of that. But I don't. I think it had. I'm not going to speculate on why I said that, but I think it had to do with another site.
So this has got nothing to do with the hospital potential location being across from the Little Saigon Plaza.
No. I think that quote was in relation to another site that was being proposed at the time in the CBD.
Nothing to do with David Pham and his advocacy in terms of your...
I was pushing for the site for the hospital to be in the CBD as soon as the hospital was announced. So, from my recollection,
Even though public articles say that you were against that.
Again, taken out of context. It was.
So when did Canterbury Bankstown make the resolution to have the hospital, the council resolution to support the hospital being on?
I recall a Merrill
the CBD
minute.
site?
I recall a Merrill minute, but I couldn't tell you the date off the top of my head.
Okay, so all these businesses with connections to David Pham, we're talking about dessert stores, we're talking about barbecue stores, nearly $20,000 worth of donations from businesses connected to David Pham, and that's all just a coincidence.
I wanted the hospital to go in the CBD before those donations were made.
You've never changed your mind, even though you've got public articles out there that show that you were saying you didn't want the hospital in
Mr. Farlow,
Bankstown
you can
CBD.
keep repeating that. I told you it was taken out of context. There have been other sites in the CBD. The government's actually done a very poor job in announcing a hospital 4 years ago, and now just announcing a site, I think on Friday, 4 years later. I mean, when's the hospital going to be built? 2050? I mean, honestly, I wanted it in the CBD because it's the best thing for the community and for the
Best thing
centre.
for David Pham and his businesses, isn't it?
No, it's the best thing for the CBD and the residents of the communities of Canterbury Bankstown to have, like every other centre has, a CBD hospital in their CBD. Unlike not 2 kilometres outside in the sticks, where residents complain to me all the time about the traffic and the parking issues they have. The site that's been chosen is a toxic waste dump that was a former brick pit, that there's going to be health money spent if it's actually built there on gases that are going to be, emanating from the ground and leaching and the like. I mean, I think health money should be spent on health, not on environmental things around a hospital on a decision that was made for political reasons.
CBD everywhere. Like which CBDs? I can think of Liverpool. I can't think of too many others apart from that.
Oh, you don't think St Vincent's is in the middle of the city?
It's not in the middle of the CBD.
Yeah, but Bankstown's a lot smaller than the Sydney CBD.
I understand that, but if you look at Parramatta, Westmead
look
is
at
not in the middle of the CBD.
Look at
Blacktown, that's not in the middle of the CBD, that's outside of the CBD. If you look at Nepean, it's outside. If you have a look at Campbelltown, it's outside of the central business district.
agree
It's
with
not
that
smack
at all,
bang
Mr.
at the Little
Farlow.
Designing
Saigon.
hospitals.
Mr. Farlow, that is not true. Not true.
It's not smack bang across from the Little Saigon, your largest donor, nearly $20,000 worth of donations connected to businesses associated with David Pham.
Again, and it's not just me saying that, Health Infrastructure recommended that the hospital go in the CBD. Health Infrastructure. And for political reasons, and for Miss Wendy Lindsay's benefit, to try and win a marginal seat, you guys went and took it out of there and went against the advice of Health Infrastructure, went against the advice
Finish the answer.
went against the advice of a cabinet subcommittee, all because of the seat of East Hills. And all these things say, all these reports, years and years worth of reports and tenders and EOIs, all suggest that it should go in the CBD. That's the reason why it should go in the CBD, not only because I said so. It should go in the CBD because that's where the hospital should go to make Bankstown a thriving city. With jobs, connected to the university, connected to research, connected to a new TAFE. These are the things that we want. to have. And, you know, like, quite frankly, to override all the bureaucracy's recommendations for political gain, to try and win a seat is corruption, in my view, and I'll be referring it to ICAC.
Well,
I think we might have a few referrals to ICAC, and maybe they'll be linked to David Pham and his $20,000 worth of associated donations.
So who else was lobbying for the hospital to be in the CBD?
The university, Western Sydney Leadership Dialogue, to name a few.
Any local Labor members of Parliament that were lobbying for it to be in the CBD?
Well, I can tell you the member for Bankstown wasn't, and the member for East Hills weren't, but, you know, I think their values speak for themselves.
Were you lobbying shadow ministers, members of the Labor Party on
They're not in government. They weren't the decision makers.
as part of their election?
I met with Minister
as part
Hazard.
of their election platform.
I met with Minister Hazard, and I asked him to. I wouldn't say lobbied him. I had a meeting with Minister Hazard, telling him all the good and proper reasons as to why the hospital should be in the CBD.
Have you been given any assurances or guarantees from the Labor Party that they would put the hospital
No.
in the CBD should they win the election?
No.
Have you spoken to the Leader of the Opposition about the hospital site?
No,
Have you spoken to the Shadow Health Minister?
no.
And with respect to the hospital side as well, like, it is still outside, it's still in the seat of Bankstown, is that correct?
I think it's on the border.
It's in the seat of Bankstown.
Yeah, I don't know with the redistribution
And,
where it actually
if the
falls.
hospital had been located in the CBD, would that have had an impact on the operation of the TAFE site there and the TAFE in Bankstown?
No, I was pushing for a new TAFE site that could be built in conjunction with the hospital, and I understand that Health Infrastructure and TAFE New South Wales were discussing that as well, because they saw the value and the merit in that idea to benefit the city. It's very, very simple, very clear. My lobbying to be in the CBD is there for all to see, because it's the right decision for the community of Canterbury Bankstown.
So you're at odds with Labor Party policy on where the hospital should be located?
No, I'm not in shadow cabinet.
But up until recently, you were on the upper house ticket for Labor.
Yeah.
So you had a difference of opinion with the party who you're
My opinion has been public, and it is public. I believe, along with Health Infrastructure, along with the Premier, Dominic Perrottet, telling me directly to my face that the hospital's going in the CBD. I mean, you know, he's the one that told me that. About a year and a half ago, he told me that directly, that it's going in the CBD, and obviously he lied to me.
So you're a Labor mayor. What's the Labor Party's position on the hospital site?
You should ask that of the Labor Shadow Minister.
Mr Asfor, when you resigned from Labor's upper house ticket,
Yes.
it was inappropriately put on Canterbury Bankstown Council letterhead, that media release. Why were council facilities and staff used to assist you in managing your candidacy for Labor's upper house ticket at the upcoming state election?
Yeah, can you show me that? Because I wasn't in the country at the time, and I don't know what was presented to the media, or to anyone for that matter.
Well, there's a media release on council letterhead which solely discusses your resignation from Labor's upper house ticket.
If you say so.
Well, it was circulated. It was from your office.
I'm not saying no. I'm saying I haven't seen it,
Okay.
and I wasn't in the country at the time.
Well, then who did you liaise with in the Mayor's office or Council's communications team about putting that statement out?
I wrote the statement,
Okay.
and I sent it to Council's communication team.
Okay. And
Because as an upper house candidate at the time, and as the Mayor of the City, I thought it was appropriate for the ratepayers to know that.
for them to know that, yes, it's true that it should be communicated from you, but did anyone in that communications team flag with you that this is a personal issue for you and not for the council to assist your candidacy?
No, it wasn't assisting my candidacy. It was ending my candidacy.
Well, nonetheless, I mean, should ratepayers really pay staff to assist in your personal candidacy? You think that's appropriate?
No, I don't.
Okay. Why didn't you release it personally on your own social media or through a private email address or something, rather than get the council team to assist your affairs?
I was overseas at the time and had
Yep.
limited internet, and it was done that way. I again didn't.
An oversight?
I didn't know or see anything on letterhead.
Did Chris Minns call you to sack you from the upper house ticket?
No.
Did you resign on your own accord?
Yes.
Did anyone from his office call you?
No.
Do you still have parliamentary ambitions?
Point of order. I think this is now straying well outside the terms of reference of the inquiry. This is about the council. These same questions could be asked of any of the 128 councillors in the state, or any of the thousands of councillors who've served since 2004. We've been pretty indulgent in allowing the widespread question, but this is well out of the terms of reference now.
I think it was matters raised by the inquiry and Mr Asfor's activities on council that led him to resign from the ticket of the Legislative Council.
That's not within the terms of reference of this inquiry.
Well,
However, it's also
The use
known-
of council resources is, and you'll note that we haven't interrupted at all. I think you're just straying
maybe if I
outside of
can,
this.
divert back to the terms of reference, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So the Sydney Morning Herald article on your resignation described a call between you and Chris Minns regarding your expenditure on council, which I do believe is very much within the terms of reference. What was discussed on that call?
It was a private conversation.
So you're not going to
No, I'm
reveal
not.
any part of
No,
that?
it was a private conversation that had nothing to do with the terms with this inquiry or the terms of reference. So, no, I will not.
Well,
I mean, I'm not going to ask you to reveal your private
well, the Leader of
conversations.
the Opposition described your spending spree as clearly not acceptable. Do you agree with him?
No. Every dollar that I've spent at ratepayers' expense has fallen within the councillor facilities and expenses policy. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been claimed and wouldn't have been paid.
Well,
and
the
I've made that clear numerous times. Again, all within council's facilities and expenses policy,
Well, the Leader of the Opposition disagrees with you.
and he has every right to.
He went further and said it's also unacceptable to charge those things to ratepayers in this state. Claiming expenses in this way is clearly not up to community expectations. Do you agree with that?
I agree that everything I have expended has been within the council facilities and expenses policy, and if that policy needs to be changed, then that's a matter for the Office of Local Government. But reminding committee members that the Office of Local Government has signed off on and approved our Canterbury Bankstown Council's facilities and expenses policy, number one. Number two, it is a similar feature in many policies across councils across this state, and unfortunately I'm the one that's been targeted and been splashed across the media as having spent that money over a number of years.
So as a result of these expenses, did Chris Minns recommend that you resign as mayor?
It was a private conversation, Mr Rath, and I'm
So
not going to go into it here.
So you're not ruling out that he
He already
recommended that you
has.
resign as mayor?
Madam Chair, I've answered this question now a number of times. Can we move on?
Sure. In terms of the other, in terms of the expenses,
Yeah.
did other stakeholders, members contact you about withdrawing from the upper house ticket as a result of those expenses? Say Bob Nanva, did he contact you at all about withdrawing from the upper house ticket?
No.
John Faker?
This is straying way outside.
It's related to the expenses.
It's not at all.
Between you and other people about this inquiry and not within the terms of reference.
Well, There you go, Mr. Rath. It's not within the terms of reference.
In terms of the expenses of, in your role as Mayor of Canterbury Bankstown Council, were concerns about the expenses raised with you from John Faker?
You just asked the same question twice.
Well, I think that is
And
very clearly within the terms of reference when we're talking about expenses.
Is there a ruling on that, Madam Chair?
Well, I think because you are a councillor, and it's with regards to this inquiry.
I mean, Mr. Rath could keep mentioning names of different people and whether I've had conversations or not with them. The reality is I resigned of my own free will. That's it.
So they didn't, these names that I mentioned, they didn't recommend that you resign from the upper house ticket as a result of your expenses on your
No, they
as
did
Mayor of
not.
Canterbury.
No, they did not.
And Steve Camper.
No.
Do you think your resignation validates Tanya Mihalik's concern that you are not fit for state politics?
Tanya Mihalik's concern were in relation to a whole number of issues. Expenses wasn't one of them.
And Mr Asphalt, you stand by all your expense claims?
They are all legitimate claims
So
that fall within the policy of the council that, again, has been voted on by councillors, has been on public exhibition, has been signed off by the Office of Local Government.
But I don't think any ratepayer in Canterbury Bankstown thought that your council policy would allow you to claim for drinks, concessions at a baseball game in the US, or they'd allow you to claim for a massage in Tokyo.
All right, so we'll do the claims first. The policy allows for when someone is away on council business to have meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner. It doesn't talk about alcohol being prohibited from that. I had dinner, I think it was a hot dog or something. I had dinner at a Yankees game. I think it was a Yankees game, and I ordered a couple of drinks with my dinner. It was a lot cheaper than going to a restaurant and spending more. So yeah, alcohol, from my understanding, is still not prohibited, but it might be. But the policy at the time did not stipulate that alcohol was prohibited. I'm sure, Mr. Farlow, you've been, I see, a few Commonwealth parliamentary trips, and I'm sure you've had a glass of wine with dinner. Am I not wrong? I mean, who paid for that? The Parliament, or out of your own pocket? It's the same sort of thing. It's not like I went and spent tens of thousands of dollars like the state member for Bankstown and charged it to the ratepayer to try and curry favour with people. I had a beer and a glass of wine with a hot dog at a game, at a baseball game. In relation to the massage, it wasn't a it was a water massage. It was a what are they called? It was like a water tank. It was a tank. There was no physical person that later touched me. It was actually a pretty claustrophobic experience where I was in this tank with water massage to help leg cramps that I'd got travelling to Tokyo.
A spa bath?
It wasn't a spa bath.
Hydrotherapy?
It was a...
Immersion.
What are they called?
I don't know.
Like an oxygen tank. It was very claustrophobic.
Float tank.
A floating tank, that's the one. I mean, there was no one that laid a finger on me or touched me or massaged me. It was a water massage in this tank, and it did a good job because it got rid of the severe leg cramps that I was having because of the flight.
Why didn't you pay for it yourself?
I did pay for it myself, but then I asked advice of whether I can claim it because I think it was around $100 or $120. And I was told I could, so I did.
Madam Chair, additionally, you claimed expenses to attend union meetings. In one of these meetings, your duties were described as nothing expected from the Mayor except for the Mayor to have a good time. Is it appropriate for ratepayers to pay for you to attend these sorts of union shindigs?
If I'm invited to any event in my capacity as the mayor of the city, then yes.
Okay. What benefit does your attendance at the HSU party have for ratepayers of Canterbury Bankstown?
The United Services Union covers many workers that are employed by Canterbury Bankstown Council, and it is appropriate for the mayor of the city, on behalf of those staff, to attend a function held by the union that they all are members of and are represented by.
Okay, so you just mentioned the USU. What about the HSU?
What about the HSU?
Is it a benefit of Canterbury Bankstown ratepayers for their mayor to go to HSU meetings and pay for the parking?
I was there to discuss council business. I wasn't there to gallivant.
Well, those two unions, the HSU and USU, are two of your biggest backers for the upper house. Was your pre-selection ever discussed at these meetings that ratepayers subsidise your attendance?
No. Well, the HSU meeting was in relation to the free parking that I was offering staff at Canterbury and Bankstown hospitals, which was very well received, and the campaign to ensure that we kept that going.
Okay.
So it was in relation to that. It wasn't in relation to my upper house candidacy.
For the council to provide free car parking.
Yeah. So we have a lot of
HSU
parking.
members?
To all nurses, orderlies, staff that work at both hospitals, so they can park their cars, and it all came out because of COVID. So it was
Okay, so something that was being discussed that
something
didn't end up coming
that I enacted and that I ensured was ongoing throughout the few years of COVID.
Okay, but those unions are big supporters of yours, yes?
You'd need to ask them.
Okay, fair enough. Well, who else supported you for your pre-selection? Bob Namber?
Point of order. This has absolutely nothing to do with the terms of reference. This is about Canterbury Council, not the pre-selection of Mr Asfor. And I think I'd ask the questioners, we've given you a pretty good go. Stick within the terms of reference, please.
How many times do you need to ask them? Go on, Mr A.
Your good friend Matthew Stewart refuses to appear before this inquiry despite numerous invitations. Will you terminate his employment if he doesn't show up to this committee?
It's not in my power to terminate anyone's employment.
Will you recommend that his employment be terminated?
It's not in my power to recommend anyone's termination.
Will you discuss such outrageous conduct of not appearing before a committee?
I can't tell you what I'm going to do and not going to do in the future, Mr Rath. I think that's quite unfair.
So you
Have you moved to summons this person? So, point of order, if this committee hasn't moved to summons, this is very out of order.
We have moved to summons and we did this morning.
It wasn't him. We're talking about someone different to who we were talking about this
No, we're
morning.
talking about the Canterbury Bankstown Council, GM.
Well, the issue of the summons has occurred. I think that this is inappropriate questioning in relation to the outcome of that.
Well, looking at up until this point then,
It's a matter for the committee, and the committee's addressing it.
well,
Well, it's a matter for the council in terms of their attendance. To Mr Asfor's credit, Mr Asfor has attended voluntarily on 2 occasions.
Absolutely.
And has come forward to answer questions.
And I think we have the right to know as well, leading up to this point, where we may hear from the GM in the future. Did you instruct the GM not to appear before this committee?
The general manager has his own legal advice. I'm here to look after myself. So you'd need to ask him why or why not. And I can't answer what I'm going to do in the future.
Or do you have any idea of why he's been so difficult in terms of us requesting on so many numerous occasions for him to appear, refusing attendance? Have you spoken to him about it?
I understand there are dates that have been forwarded, and that's all I know.
Any other questions?
Appears.
Any more?
Is Mr. Rath finished? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Now, just turning to, I think we've discussed in terms of the media announcements with respect to your withdrawal. So no council staff were at all asked to write those media releases on your behalf?
I wrote the media release, or not the media release, I wrote my comments because they're my comments.
Okay, so the media release substantively was written by council staff, but you provided them with the comments to include, as in Mr. Asfor said. Is that correct?
I'm not, I can't, I don't know the exact, what happened exactly. I mean, it was a very tumultuous time for me, and again, I was overseas and I didn't have internet or service, so it was really difficult at that time.
And was that a directive you made to the general manager, or was that a directive you made to the council media staff?
What's the directive?
In terms of the preparation of the media release and the issuing of that, was that something you relayed to the general manager, or did you relay it to the council communication staff?
It wasn't to the general manager.
Okay, it was to the communication staff or to somebody else in council?
It was to someone in council.
Okay, not in the communications team, and who was that person in council?
Don't know their title.
You don't know the person's title. Do you know their name you can provide?
Yeah, I know who I
Okay, and who was
I sent the message to.
Who was that?
Mr. John Ciafetti.
Okay, thank you. And you don't know what Mr. Ciafetti's role is in council?
No, I do know what his role is,
Okay,
but I don't know what his official title is.
Okay, what's his role in council then?
He provides advice, I think. He's a policy advisor of some sort. I don't know.
And is
Don't know
that
the actual title.
Okay.
And I'm happy to let you know.
Thank you very much. If you can take that on notice, that'd be helpful. And so you had the Public Service of Council provide this on your own personal political career. Do you think that's appropriate?
Again, I don't know what happened. I wasn't here. I didn't have service. I was overseas. I don't know what happened.
Well, why didn't you refer that then directly to the Labor Party to issue the statement on your behalf, having been a Labor candidate and Labor Party head office?
I had
rather than
limited
Canterbury
service.
Bankstown Council?
I had limited service. I was overseas. I did not have, the means to do anything, and it was very limited. So I had to do what I had to do very quickly, and that's what occurred.
Whereabouts overseas?
I was on a cruise,
Oh, okay.
so I was literally had nothing, no service, no.
But you were able to discuss with Chris Mintz. You were able to have a discussion with him about where things are at.
Telephone?
Telephones have internet.
Yes, but
I'm
it's
sending an
limited
email right
service.
now.
And finally, Mr. Asfor, in relation to your council disclosures, do you have any international property holdings?
Yes,
And whereabouts are they located?
the Philippines.
The Philippines?
Yes.
And are there any developers who've assisted with the cost of any of your home renovations?
No.
That's it from me.
Have we received the
Questions?
questions on this?
No, not as yet.
Leave due in 4 minutes.
We're coming at 11 o'clock.
I'll just ask one question. Why could you not have waited till you came back from your trip to make that announcement?
The impact it was having on my family was, and still is, something I don't wish upon anyone. And I needed a circuit breaker.
And Mr. Asfor, is that Philippines property listed on your declarations to council?
No.
Why not?
Because it's only related to Australian property.
So you don't need to make any foreign declarations?
No. No, you don't.
I might just ask a couple of questions. Firstly, Mr. Asfor, you'll table your answers to questions on notice shortly. Is there anything you wanted to add at this point, or do you want to deal with any of those after the break?
I'll deal with them after.
Yep, understood. There appears to be some suggestion from the government committee members that you shouldn't have been talking to health workers during the COVID period. Is there anything else you want to place on the record about those discussions about health parking, a discussion that was happening
Yeah, look,
in a range of councils right across the state?
That's right. Canterbury Bankstown was one of the first councils to allow the free parking. As we all know, parking for staff at hospitals is exorbitant. The fees are just, difficult for them to pay. And I'm very proud of the fact that throughout COVID, where our frontline health workers were making and putting their lives in danger and servicing our communities, that I was able to do one little bit to help with the support of the HSU. I mean, it's something we should be encouraging, where frontline service workers have had it tough for the last few years, and council could do its little bit to help, and that's what we did in consultation with the HSU.
You've raised your concerns about the disclosure of certain documents to the media
Yes.
that occurred before they were public. Do you want to expand on those concerns?
Well, yeah, I mean, it defies belief when, Madam Chair, you said that I'd have procedural fairness, and it's not the first time this inquiry has leaked information that only was in the possession of the inquiry from committee members to media. I mean, it just takes the integrity out of this committee. It shoots it down. And I just don't understand why that would occur when you all would have had the chance to question me on them in this forum, and as should be. I mean, it just smells of kangaroo court, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, we have a Westminster system, a democratic system. I've voluntarily come here before you and answer any questions you may have. But to have material go to media before it's made public and before I'm able to respond to it, I think just casts a shadow over the processes and the integrity of this inquiry. I just think it's important also to note that it feels that this inquiry is all about me, when there are other councillors, other mayors that have been mayor of Canterbury and Bankstown and Canterbury Bankstown and councillors as well, and no questions or leaking is occurring on them. I just, if you wanted to call inquiry into me, you should have, instead of trying to impugn the integrity of the whole council and its staff.
And all those documents have been now made public, and I have to say, we've supported them being made public. I believe that's the right thing to do, but you're raising this separate issue that before they were made public, they appear to have made their way out.
Absolutely.
In what would have been a breach of the committee's usual way of operating.
And I think that breach needs to be investigated. It really does, there's been other breaches too, Mr. Graham, I think in December, in relation to other material, I understand. So it's not the first time, and it probably won't be the last time, but again, it just shoots down any procedural fairness that, Ms McDonald, you keep telling me that I have, and it shoots down any integrity of this committee and its processes.
Thank you.
So we will have a break now and reconvene. Oh no, sorry, did you have more questions? No. At 11 o'clock, and because you've got your legal representatives here, and you mentioned before that the questions on notice couldn't be provided Friday afternoon because you were not in contact with them, or sorry, they had left for the afternoon.
Yeah, I don't think they saw the email.
Yeah, are you
Mr.
able
Donald?
to consult with them over the break to see that we get the questions on notice received?
The ones that I can provide you?
Yes.
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 Yes, yes. I'm hearing 11 o'clock, Madam Chair.
Could I suggest, Madam Chair, potentially 11:30 then, to give us time to take a look at those questions on notice in the break?
That's acceptable from our end.
30? Is that?
Yes.
As long as we stick to the close time.
Yeah, we'll close.
Yeah, we're not extending time.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you got that many
No,
questions.
So
that's it.
11. So we have a break till 11:30.
Go grab a coffee.
And that's assuming we have the questions on notice provided in that time so that we can...
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you.
So I'll commence with...
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going through the answers to questions on notice.
Yeah.
And Mr Asfor, if we go back to your opening statement, not of today, but rather 46 days ago, you mentioned that, or you really made the point that the truth will set you free, or words to those effect. I'm flicking through here, and the majority of answers given are, and I quote, unable to answer at this time due to unavailability of council documents.
Yes.
It's the answer for the large majority of questions, almost all questions, that is the answer for.
Yeah.
But there are some pretty simple questions that really don't
Such as?
require, well, just for example, in the 5 minutes I've had this document, Mark Latham asked you what the missed bin rate is at council. Surely that shouldn't be too hard to pick out and provide
Yeah. Again,
a response. These are simple stuff.
Yeah, no,
These are really
I
material
totally
to-
understand, and I answered it earlier this morning. They're operational matters. I don't have the number at hand. I need to ask the
Yeah.
council to provide me with that answer, and they have not done so yet. So until they do, I can't answer it, and I'm not going to make it up.
Okay, yeah. And on a similar theme, another question on the same subject matter, why has the council brought the recycling and rubbish collection back in-house? Surely this is something that was raised at a council meeting.
I answered that question at the time.
Well, your answer
I
was,
said-
I'm happy to take on notice. But,
Yeah, so if it was the council report
Okay.
that I needed to go and find, I mean, all these answers, I didn't want to go off my memory. I needed the facts, and the facts are with the council, and I need to go and get the necessary evidence or documentation or reports or documents. And my solicitors have asked council solicitors to provide us with those so we can respond to all the questions on notice. Again, most of them are operational matters which fall outside my ability to gather those documents.
sure, okay. And do you expect to actually come back again with more detailed answers to each of the questions that you've answered
As
with
soon as I've received and viewed and gone through those responses, I will be forwarding them directly to the committee, but I can't control how long the council solicitors take to provide my solicitors with that information. And I've been agitating, I can assure you.
Okay. I mean, how long, as I said earlier, it's 46 days since these questions were first asked. At what point do you think it's really, getting long in the tooth and maybe there's a privileges referral needed?
How long's a piece of string, Mr. Martin? I can't give you information I don't have. I just can't. Like it's hard for me to answer it any other way, and I'm doing my best to get the information from the council. And as soon as it's furnished to me, I will review it and send it on to the committee. I can't do any more than that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just in regards to your answer on the subjects you did as part of your MBA, I asked a question about whether you had a form to fill in for each subject.
What page are you on? Sorry, Mr. Rath.
Page 5.
Yep.
At the bottom.
Yep.
So I asked about the expenses paid as coming from your MBA.
Yeah.
Your answer is information provided to me from council confirms there was no form to fill in.
That's right.
So could you elaborate a bit more on that? I mean, you've got this situation where you're doing your MBA, council's paying for some of the subjects, and you're saying there wasn't even a form to fill in?
I think I answered that last time I appeared before the inquiry. There was a file note made when I spoke to the general manager or the CEO about me wanting to undergo studies, and I don't understand, from what I've been advised, there is no form if I wanted to go and and undergo studies. So you asked about a form, I think last time, or maybe Mr. Farlow did from memory. There is no form.
So you just go and have a chat to the GM and say, look, I want to do my MBA.
I want to go and do some courses which will help me in my role as the mayor. And the GM then makes a file note for the record, which I understand was done, and I understand will be provided as per your request and my first appearance before this inquiry.
Don't you think it's a bit strange? I mean, you know, in New South Wales Parliament, or even in my previous job in the corporate sector, every time that we needed to submit a claim for an expense, there was a form you had to...
I did submit claim forms for the expense. It's the question is, did I fill out a form to begin undergoing the studying? And the answer to that from council is that there is no form to fill in. I had a conversation with the general manager who then wrote a file note which was placed on the record to say that we've had the conversation and that it was approved. And then I underwent the study, and as per subject, I would put the claim form in. It's pretty simple.
Would you be able to provide the committee with a copy of that
the file note? Yeah, I think there's another question in there somewhere. And yes, absolutely.
And I mean, just to Mr. Martin's point, some of these questions are incredibly simple, I would have thought. I mean, one of them, which, you know, on the next page, I was asking about the advice that you sought from the Office of Local Government, where you say that your education was completely within the guidelines of council's policy. I mean, surely that advice was only given to the council a couple of months ago.
Yes.
And I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult to provide a document that, you know, you sought advice about whether your education was within the guidelines only recently from the Office of Local Government. It's been 46 days. Surely that could have been provided to the committee, I would have thought, quite quickly and simply.
That was a correspondence sent to the council, not to me. The council has that record, and I've asked the council to provide me with it so I can provide it to this inquiry. I can't do any more than that, and I've asked for it, and I understand it is forthcoming, and when it is, I will send it on.
Do you think it's unacceptable how long it's taking to get access to very simple information from
the council? I think you're asking about a document. There's a whole tranche of documents that I've asked for in relation to answering the questions on notice, and that tranche needs to be provided to me and to my legal representatives. It's not going to come in a piecemeal approach. It's going to come, hopefully, answering all of the questions on notice, and that's what I'd expect. And as soon as it does, again, I will furnish it to the committee.
All right, then over the next page, page 7, I ask whether you've had any expenses knocked back, and the answer provided is, according to council records and my recollection, I've not had any such expenses knocked back.
Yes.
So basically you're saying that council says yes to everything. Every expense that you've put in, they've said yes to, whether it's boozy dinners or tacos in Tijuana or Armani suits. They're basically saying yes to every single claim that you've put in, no questions asked.
That's not true, and you should withdraw that, because that's impugning the staff of the council. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and this is the occurrence that I understand most councils across the state. There's a policy. The claim is put in, staff then look at that claim form and see whether that expense meets the policy. If it meets the policy, then it is approved by finance or that department of council, and the claim is made. So to say that putting in a claim gets approved, no. It goes through a process, a proper process, which is, good governance and probity, and to make sure that any claim made by any councillor at any time meets the council's facilities and expenses policy. That's what's happened in every one of my claim forms, every one of my claims, and every other councillor. And that's what should happen and does happen.
But when we've asked simple questions, like I think Mr. Farlow asked the question about the tacos in Tijuana, and your response is on page 16. The expenses claimed were in line with the councillor's facilities and expenses policy, and in line with the expenses for meals claimed during overseas visits.
Yes.
It doesn't really answer the question. I mean, do you think that is acceptable to put in a claim like that? Were questions asked on that specific claim?
Well, the claim was made, it was for a lunch that I had in Tijuana after a morning of visiting and being on the tour. I don't remember what we did that morning, but we did something. We had a meeting of some sort, and then we went to Tijuana and had lunch. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, when overseas or away on council business, all meals are covered by the policy that you need to eat breakfast, lunch and dinner. And I had lunch in Tijuana.
But I thought that was the personal, private part of the trip.
So you're deciphering between a person, when you're away on council business, whether you're, whether you're having breakfast. No one says that you need to have a breakfast meeting every morning when you're away, but you're going to have breakfast, and that's covered by the policy that your meals are covered. Whether you're in a room meeting with other people or whether you're, having your so-called private time. At the end of the day, you're away on council business, and under the policy, meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner are provided. Whether you're in a meeting or whether you finished a meeting or whether you're about to go to a meeting, the meals are provided for in the policy.
But this is not stopping off at Macca's on the way to a meeting. This is going across a border, providing your passport to cross the border into another country and then charging it back to the council ratepayers.
The lunch. So whether I had lunch in San Diego or whether I had lunch in Tijuana makes a difference, does it?
Well, your suggestion at the last inquiry was that this was a personal day.
No, I said it was a half a day, personal half a day. I was in Tijuana for 3 or 4 hours. I wasn't in Tijuana for a whole day. I'd spent time in the morning with the tour as I did, and then instead of having lunch in San Diego, I think it was San Diego, before catching a tram to Tijuana, to the border, I decided that I'll have lunch after I get to my destination, which I did. And I then, as I said, it was lunch, and that's what happened. There's nothing sinister here. I had lunch as part of under the council's facilities and expenses policy, and whether I had lunch on either side of the border is irrelevant because the policy has been met.
I'll let Mr. Rath continue.
So, again, just on the point of expenses, I mean, some very basic questions that were asked that we're still
What are you
waiting.
referring to?
So on page 8, for instance, this was the discussion last time about the professional development allowance. It was $3,000 a year, which went through a change where you could claim up to $15,000. I think it was different buckets of money that were put together in one single fund. And you took on notice the increase. What was the increase in that pool of money? And again, the answer is unable to answer at this time due to unavailability of council documents. I mean, it's a very, very simple.
I think we worked it out.
Question.
We worked it out in December. Me and you, Mr. Rath, at the time.
40%.
It was about, but I'm not going to say about. I want to give you the exact number. So we want to go back and look at the policies. And I don't have access to the previous policy because it's no longer online. And it's a matter now for me to wait for the council staff to furnish me with that so I can then give you the answer that you requested. It's that simple.
These are pretty serious allegations. I would have thought that someone in your position would have done a little bit more of your homework rather than presenting basically non-answers to some of these questions on notice.
I'm providing the committee with the answers as soon as I receive them from the council staff and the council solicitors. Like, I don't know how many times I can tell you that, but I'm happy to keep repeating it if you like.
Point of order, Chair. I mean, I've been listening to this for quite a long time. Mr Rath may not like the answer given, but an answer has been provided, and continuing to ask the same question and hoping for a different answer is not really taking the committee anywhere. I think you should move on.
I will move on. Page 21, sort of last page. In regards to, I mean, just looking at the answer there at the top regarding non-pecuniary disclosures,
Yeah.
the answer is RE, councillor, non-pecuniary disclosures, comma, unable to answer, etc.
Mr. Rath,
Is that...
Mr. Rath, I think that's a typo, and that's the amendment that we're making. Ms. McDonald, if you can answer that for him, please.
Yes, that's right. We've got an a corrected version.
That's an error. That should not be there.
Okay, 'cause
and
that's pretty unacceptable.
No,
Yeah.
that's not the answer.
Okay. Then just moving into the second part there. So
Sure.
in relation to claiming loyalty
Yes.
points through council,
Yeah.
to the best of my knowledge and records, I have not claimed them.
That's right.
So your Hyatt membership, are you a member of
Yes.
the Hyatt loyalty
Yes,
program?
yes.
So one of the claims
Yes.
forms had the
I answered this
loyalty
last time. Sure.
part redacted. Why was that redacted?
I don't know.
Or who's in charge of
What was?
redacting?
Show me the document. I mean, I answered this last time. I gave my points, my number to the Hyatt, and it wasn't to claim points because you need to personally book the room in your name, so you don't get points. What you do get, is I think a newspaper, which I enjoy reading, but not when it's about me lately.
Well, who's in charge of redacting documents at the council
Well, it depends which document you're talking about. Unless you
regarding
show me-
expenses?
Show me the document, Mr. Rath. I'm not sure what was redacted and who redacted it and what document you're referring to. So,
I'll go here. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Asfor, I want to draw your attention back to page 3. You won't be surprised to learn that I'll be coming back to EAL again.
yeah.
Are you able to just elaborate in your opening sentence? It says, I have consulted with various clients. Do you mind just elaborating on what various clients
I think
means?
I've elaborated in that answer.
Okay, it goes on. When I established the consultancy, it was predominantly for mums and dads seeking broking advice. I later expanded offering advice on a range of matters from business process, community service and supporting businesses with their advocacy and processes.
Yep.
Do you mind elaborating on advocacy? What kind of advocacy do you mean when you write that there?
Okay, so you can advocate for different lenders when you're a mortgage broker, for example. You can advocate for results for businesses to meet certain targets.
So it's about the internal financial operations and their financial dealings with the institutions. It's not advocacy in regards to development, council issues, government issues.
Oh, look, it could be, but not in relation to Canterbury Bankstown Council. So, it falls outside of the terms of reference because it has nothing to do with council. And as I've said earlier, I do not do any work for any clients that are connected to or related to or have any business in Canterbury Bankstown. And I do that on purpose, and I have done that from day one because I don't want there to be a perceived conflict of any business that might have dealings in the past or in the future with the council.
Do you advise them on developments or the like in other councils or interactions with any other councils?
Yes, I have in the past, yes. Because I obviously have local government experience, I understand how councils operate, and I have advised businesses in the past to that effect, yes.
Would it be more appropriate to have used the word lobbying instead of advocacy in that case?
No, I wouldn't say I'm lobbying, no. I'm advocating for using proper processes and channels and giving advice, really. That's what I'm doing. I'm giving the client advice.
is part of giving the client advice also connecting them with people?
Is that like architects or engineers or what?
Oh,
Is that, I
to
don't know,
be
what
frank-
type of people? Can you be a bit more specific?
Well, no, to be frank, I'm asking you about the nature of your business. I'm
Yeah.
not going to ask every occupation in the yellow pages and whether you've linked them up with clients that you may or may not have had.
Well, if I can help a client, I do the best of my ability to help them.
Okay, and do you mind elaborating on community service? It was also mentioned in that line.
Yeah,
So what
I've
kind of-
had not-for-profits
Yep.
that have come to me in the past for help and advice on delivering their service, and I've given them advice. That's it.
Okay.
And just to pick up from Mr Martin's point there, so in terms of that help that you provide clients, does that involve interacting with other councillors, talking to other councillors about those projects in other areas?
Not necessarily councillors, more council staff.
Council staff? Okay.
Yeah.
In other councils, any particular councils that you would have worked with?
There'd be a few, depending on the client at the time.
Okay,
Yeah.
so councils, Liverpool Council at all?
Yeah, there's been a client at Liverpool Council, yes.
Burwood Council?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Georges River Council?
Not that I recall.
Okay. And now just turning back to the discussion you outlined before in terms of your overseas property interests.
Yes,
So the Philippines property, what sort of property is that?
apartment.
Okay. And
Apartments.
how did you come to acquire that property in the Philippines?
I purchased property. I mean, how did I come to it? I decided that I wanted to go and buy some property in the Philippines, and I went and purchased
And was that purchased through you individually or through your trust or
through me individually.
through you individually?
Yes.
And when did you acquire that property?
When? I think this falls outside the terms of reference, to be honest. Like, what I do in my private capacity financially and what I invest
Well, I
in
think there's an expectation from the residents of Canterbury
yeah.
Bankstown Council. Is that
Well, the
property-
Philippines has nothing to do with Canterbury Bankstown Council.
Well, it could. Is that property
yeah.
located in a building that's owned by the Webbies?
No. Again, outside of the terms of reference. But the answer is no.
Okay. Well, coming back to Mr Asphall, considering these expenses and your management on the Canterbury Bankstown Council have disqualified you from the Labor upper house ticket and you weren't seen to be good enough to be on the Labor upper house
I
ticket,
withdrew from the upper house ticket, Mr.
do you
Farlow.
believe that you were good enough to serve the people of Canterbury Bankstown as their mayor?
Absolutely. Absolutely I have, because every expense I've ever made has been in accordance with the expenses of facilities policy, as has all the councillors across this state. I mean, this is what we do. I'm sure, I don't know how it works in Parliament, but when you expend something, and it's within the policy, you are entitled to claim it back. I've done that. I've done that in accordance with policy, and I'll continue to do that because it's appropriate. If the policy needs to be changed because there's an edict from the government or from the Office of Local Government, then so be it. But at the current time and in the present, Canterbury Bankstown Council's expenses and facilities policy was approved and has been signed off on by the Office of Local Government. It's been on public exhibition a number of times. It's been voted on by councillors a number of times, and all councillors are entitled to claim expenses that fall within that policy. It's black and white, it's simple. And we don't write our own cheques, we don't pay ourselves. It goes through a process. We put in a claim. If the claim meets the policy, then it is claimed.
I've got one question,
Yeah.
which just is, I just wanted to understand in terms of the responding to questions on notice, just that what was the shutdown period for council? And I think you alluded to this
Yeah.
earlier on in terms of when you received the transcript to respond.
So I believe I received the transcripts on the 15th or 16th of January,
Right, okay.
because obviously Parliament was on holidays. We've had skeleton staff throughout January. We've actually had to go and put on more staff, and that's significant cost to the ratepayer to ensure that we can bundle all these tranches of documents that go back nearly 20 years. And it's a lot to go through. It's boxes and boxes and boxes of documents. And the staff are dealing with the request of the committee in relation to the documents asked to be produced for the council. So, you know, I can only do what I can do. I can't provide documents I don't have access to. Again, I'm the mayor. I don't have access to operational matters, and a lot of the questions that were asked that I took on notice related to operational matters. So.
Great, thank you.
We're endeavouring to do our best, as in myself and my legal team, to get these answers from the staff. Again, it's been a drain on the resources of the council, but we're doing our utmost best to comply with the committee's request.
That's it.
I don't have any further questions, Chair.
None here.
Are we done?
We're done. I'm just going to thank you for attending this hearing, and just to remind you with regard to, I don't think you took any questions on notice today.
I think I took one, Madam
If you
Chair,
did,
which was an easy one.
has resolved
But
that
again-
the answers to questions taken on notice be returned within, and it's a short time frame, within 48 hours of the provision of the transcript, and the Secretariat will contact you in relation to the question that you've taken on notice.
Sorry, within 48 hours,
Of being provided with the
I need to respond to
transcript.
the questions on notice.
Yes.
I thought it was 14 days.
It is normally, but because we've got a short time frame left with the hearing or the inquiry, we've had to condense that, and that's for anyone as well. So I say thank you again for
You
your
said it was
time.
an easy one.
It is an easy one, but we got to, again...
Got all these other ones.
Yeah, which I'm hoping will be with the committee shortly. You know, again, I think I've answered that.
So
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.